Manuscript podcast, the story of us as told by Taylor Swift, where in each episode we explore the invisible strings Taylor has woven through our lives. Today, we are here to share the story of Kelsey Djupstrom, a salesperson, comedian, and recently recruited Swiftie. Last time we talked about the year of the Eras tour and how it has supercharged the Taylor Swift fandom and brought in a lot of new fans along the way. And Kelsey is one of those women who has been converted from somewhat indifferent to full-blown Swiftiedom within the last year. And she's here today to share her story with us. And part of that is that when she became a Swiftie, she developed this incredible Taylor Swift comedy routine. So I want to start off first by sharing a little bit of her work with you. Go ahead and listen to this.
I thought to myself, what would Taylor do? Because that's how my brain works now. That's just how it works. That's normal functioning. Taylor would write 18 songs. She would record them. She would win Grammys for 2 of them. She would re-record them because sometimes men are problematic. She would perform them and sold out 70,000 seat stadium shows at 3.5 hours a pop, elevating local economy after local economy. She would release a movie of her performing them at one of those sold out stadium shows entirely on her own without a distributor. She would potentially release a documentary of the behind the scenes of said stadium show, giving us hopefully an inside peek of the new love she fell into, all the while cultivating an environment where women and girls are exchanging friendship bracelets and are kind to each other.
Thank you so much for joining us, Kelsey. I'm so excited to have you. And it sounds like you were actually a Travis Kelsey fan first. Is that right?
Nailed it. 100% accurate. Still am.
So how did you cross the bridge from being a Chiefs fan to becoming a Swiftie?
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. Since Travis Kelsey was drafted, I mean, not right away, but I've had him in my fantasy leagues as my tight end. I love football too. And I think in the clip, it kind of alludes to that. Obviously, it was edited. I'm from Wisconsin originally. You can take me out of Wisconsin. All we had was football. We had ominous skies, a lot of alcoholism, and football. So I chose football. Green Bay Packers are everything to me. And I just love the sport. So whether it's Hard Knocks, whether it's, Bussin' with the Boys, New Heights, I love football. I generally usually have a fantasy league too. This last couple of years, I haven't had a fantasy league, but, and Travis Kelsey, I'm gonna tell you what, thank you. Thank you, sir.
If you enjoy fantasy football, have you played Swiftball at all?
No, what?
Oh, do you not know what Swiftball is?
No, I don't.
Okay, so this is Taylor's version of fantasy football. I'm going to teach you something right now. Oh my gosh. So Swiftball is where you watch the live stream of the Eras tour and you fill out a ballot ahead of time guessing which outfit she's going to wear for each era. And then also whether she's going to do a mashup during the surprise songs or not. There's several other things that you can bet on. But you go into the app and you fill out your ballot for the Eras tour before the show, and then you watch live and you get points based on how many things you got right for what she picked for the different eras during the show. And then every week they post rankings of all of the fans for who has the best Swiftball, who picked the best team of outfits for every show.
You're going to show me this, right, later?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll definitely get you set up. We'll have to play a game of Swiftball. Okay.
And
this is so much fun.
Oh, my God. I'm so happy right now. I think DraftKings should pick that up. TBH, could you imagine? DraftKings, that's where you can bet, too, on, things. But I think they're just missing some stuff, and that's all I'm saying.
DraftKings actually did have Taylor Swift bets available for the Super Bowl. You could bet on whether she was going to go on the field after the game. You could bet on whether Travis was going to propose. The people who bet that Travis was going to propose lost a ton of money on the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah. And I'm going to say right here and now, yeah, First of all, that boy's already said like he gets nervous even about a Valentine's Day gift. Like he's a professional athlete. Like this is,
It
we'll
wasn't
get
going to
into
happen
that.
on the field. Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, why is he going to do that? Like he's got one thing that week.
But let's go back to
So
really what moment sort of last year helped you really turned you over into becoming a Swiftie?
yeah, I'm going to say so. And I say it in the beginning of my show. I'm going to probably alter that monologue. I think just for exposition, it's been helpful for me to get into it. But I love football. I love the Kelsey brothers. They just remind me of a couple of my guy friends from back home, and I just think they're a hoot. So I I say every morning I get up at 6:30 in the morning. I meditate. I take some spiritual time with myself, except for Wednesdays at 6:30 when I watch New Heights live because that's when it's released on YouTube.
Mhm.
And I saw that ad read. I just saw it was an ad read when he was like, well, I went to the Taylor Swift concert and I left butthurt because she wouldn't talk to him afterwards or beforehand, and he had the friendship bracelet with his number on it, and Jason poked fun of him. And I'm not really like I'll stay away from the TikTok thing. Those tarot readers really like to get you on like, this is what did I do here? Get off this. And then Jason was asked. It was when Jason was asked after the Eagles opening game
Mhm.
about Travis and Taylor, and I was like, wait, what's happening? And then she ended up coming to the Bears Chiefs game, and I'm like, excuse me. And I was watching a lot of the Chiefs already because like the Packers, we were already in a rebuild. We have a really young team. I didn't expect them to end up doing what they did this year. I also thought we were going to have like Green Bay Packers East with Aaron Rodgers at the Jets, and literally all the way our third string quarterback was there, and Cobb, and but then the Achilles, and then that didn't happen. And I just love the Chiefs. I think Mahomes and all of them, like it's not an arrogance. I love how they play like a team. So I watched a lot of, but and then I don't know if it was like Swiftie content that came up for me. There was something, and as I say to my show, I quickly fell into a Taylor hole, and I live here now. You can forward all mail. This is my new address. But at the time, I was reading Andrea Gibson, which is so queer. I was reading one of their books, and they're a poet, and then I started reading some of her lyrics from Evermore and Folklore, and I was like, what is happening? And it's not like I was, I'm not gonna, I'll get at that later or whatever, but like it was just the level of writing, and in comparison, Andrea Gibson's somebody that I hold in a really high regard, and it's the same thing. Like they're just putting your experience together on in words on paper, and this feeling of being followed, right?
Mhm.
Like, were you stalking me when that happened? Like, did that happen to you too? No, you were stalking me when that happened, right? What are you doing here? How
Right,
did
like
you
you
understand
wrote this song about me,
about
right?
me? How did you know what my insides felt like? And I
Mhm.
think, and that's kind of what happened. I knew we talked about 1989 earlier, and like, that's probably the album I was most familiar with, or just because those
Mhm.
are the songs, right, that were really, uh, you know,
Hitting hard on the radio, yeah.
exactly. Yeah. But also I'm not a big radio person too. Like if
Okay.
I'm in the car, I can go a long time without hearing new music.
Mhm.
It's kind of like just where my head is, my neurodivergent head is for that moment. But, there's podcasts and, audiobooks and all that great stuff. So, I didn't hate her or anything like that. I just,
Yeah.
didn't dive deep, and, my music taste is pretty vast from, Brandy Carlisle to like Anderson .Paak to musicals. Do you know what I mean? But I
Mhm.
don't know. I just never got into her, and then I just couldn't look away. But I kind of think too the things that were pulling me in was, she's already gone through a lot too, right? Through
Mhm.
COVID, and she's a couple of years younger than me, and I think the level of insight and how she was writing about it, and even as a kid she was doing it, right? But like
Mhm.
it's just gotten how she's articulated and come to understand her experiences is with a newer and mature voice. And I think she's already probably been leagues ahead of somebody of her own age for a long time. But, I could really like relate in just a different way, which I think just happens as life goes on, right? And then I couldn't look away. I think, I was collaborating with somebody and producing a show, and we were, thinking about what my next show was going to be. And I hadn't performed in a long time since COVID. And I just kept on saying, I'm like, dude, I don't know what's happening to me, but like, I think I can't stop thinking and talking and looking at Taylor Swift stuff. And we were done working on her show and doing our like marketing efforts, and we were walking to our cars in this parking lot, and she's like, I think there's something to this Swiftie thing with you, whatever it is. And she's still not on board, but she's like, there's something to it. And then I went home and I thought about it. And she also was like, don't do a mic, right? Where you've got a couple comics, it's Swiftie theme, and then they do a couple Taylor Swift jokes, and then they get in their own material. And I had no desire to do that anyway. I was like, no, that's not where I was going. But I love that she said that, because it really started, like, the only way I could do a Taylor Swift show that was unique, in my understanding, was doing it about my journey. And really, that's
Right.
what this show is. It's this Venn diagram that's thematic to my journey of becoming a Taylor Swift fan, which I say at the show. So it really, it's about me again. So it's this Venn diagram of football and comedy and Swiftiness and
Yes.
queerness, because look at me, as I say in my opening monologue. So when the audience arrives, I make a lot of friendship bracelets that are team themed, if you will, and between those four teams. So as you arrive, you decide what team you most identify with.
Okay,
At that
nice.
time. Yeah. So you can pick from the Swifties, which are some pretty traditional things that you would probably get at Eras, at a tour. You're exchanging friends or friendship bracelets with your new best friends. And then there's football themed ones, comedy themed ones, and then queer ones.
Love
And
it.
sometimes people don't read the signs. Obviously, nobody reads signs or directions, but so then they find out at the top of the monologue too, like, hey, if you didn't read that, that's the team you're on, and my audience can draft from you, from your team. So if they need an assist, then they can draft from you. And otherwise, my comedians we start it's like in this format of a football game, and we start
Yeah.
with Rising for the Anthem, which of course is a Taylor Swift. It's ready for it. Obviously, I'm not. I come out, I have my opening monologue, and we do the coin toss and decide which one of our comedians are going first, and they compete for 4 quarters. It's the same scoring as a football game, and each segment is named after either a song or a lyric, because sometimes not every song is gonna title is giving me the exact name. And in some ways it still has like a lot of wait, don't tell me, or love it or leave it, but it's so fun. But again, most of my comedians have not been Swifties. I had my last show, we had one that was a hardcore Swiftie, and then our other comedian, I think she was a little Swift curious by the end of it. So I think I did a great job.
Interesting.
I'm just saying.
I
But
love that. I love that.
yeah,
Swift curious. I
yeah,
recently just started converting one of my coworkers at work. I've been chipping away at this guy for months by just like, I obviously also like regurgitate Taylor Swift facts like it's my job. And so basically whenever I'm at work and I'm bored, I'll talk about Taylor to anyone who will stand around long enough to hear it. And so I've been chipping away
I'm
at this
blessed.
guy at work for a while. And then last night he came into work and he's like, damn you, I've been listening to So High School on a loop for a week. And I was like, yes, I did it.
That's like, so one of my biggest compliments. A friend of mine was there, and he's a gay gentleman. He supported my first show, and he used to be an executive producer on like sitcoms. And he told me that he went home and he woke up his partner. He's like, I didn't know a lot about her, and I don't know what I just saw. And I think that's kind of one of the best compliments is everybody comes. I've kind of done a good poll, and I'm like, is there enough for everyone? And I think it's really important for me to have enough, especially for Swifties, because like I need my new friends. You need new friends. You need Swiftie friends, right? So that you can have these conversations that you and I go off on. And then, but also I wanted enough for my friends. And I want this weird Venn diagram, and everybody is come to the consensus. I haven't had one person, and my friends are pretty honest, and I think people who don't know me are going to be even more honest, but have agreed that there's enough for everyone. And but just how excited he was about what he learned too, because there's like some trivia that'll come up for like a field goal attempt if like the comedian didn't win the one segment, and or football and queer trivia. It's that is probably the best compliment though. Like it wasn't just that he kind of this understanding, it's the level of excitement that I heard in his voice, and I'm like,
right, it's not just that he learned something, it's that it piqued an interest in him to learn more.
Right.
Yeah, which is so fascinating.
Yeah, I know. So
yeah, and also like your show sounds so incredible. It sounds like you really have gone like above and beyond to develop this concept. It's not just a comedy show where you go and talk and people sit in their seats and laugh. Like you've created this whole interactive experience. It's really incredible, and I feel like you really are sort of following in Taylor's footsteps doing that, because that's what she does with the Eras tour, right? Like she did not have to go create a 3.5-hour Broadway show to tour the world with, and she didn't have to cut down and restructure and rewrite that entire show over her Christmas break either, but she does all of that for us as fans. And I love that you've taken that inspiration onto your own, and you're like, if I'm going to make this comedy show, it's not just going to be another joke about Taylor Swift, laugh until I cry. It's no, I'm going to make an experience for the Swifties, which is what Taylor always tells us about, is it's like, make that experience.
Yeah, 100%.
Really amazing.
And I think too, some things, I had gone to see, I almost went to Argentina. I just got promoted, and then I just could not find, I know, because he was there too. So it would have been like, I probably would have died though. And like, I don't need to die right now. Like, I don't think I was ready just yet. Right. Like, I think I didn't know he was going to go, and I would have absolutely died. I would have just died, dude. I don't know what to say. It just would have happened. But so thank God I avoided my untimely death. And I did end up going to the movie with a friend of mine. I kind of tricked her into it. Like I said, "Oh,
love that.
Will you go with me?" And she was like, "No." And then I was like, "She's like, I'm not." She's like, "Girl, I'm not sitting for 3.5 hours." And then a couple days later, I said, "Hey, when did you say you were going to be able to go with me?" Because she's always if she says like she'll do something, she's that friend that will go. And then she went, and actually what I never told her, and I'm not going to tell her about this podcast, sorry, that's the one person I'm not going to tell, but because I have not told her that I tricked her into going. Yeah, the SAG-AFTRA strike had just ended, and she's getting a bunch of stuff from production for her job, and she had been working during the strike on a feature too, and she like texted me the next day and thanked me, and she's like, "You know what? I started working on that during the Evermore era." She started like writing something, and I just let her do it because it was just her and I in the middle of the theater at the time. It was like right in November, and then it was a back row of little like 8 to 10-year-olds with a parent, and she started working. I was like, fine, she's already here. It's 3.5 hours. God bless her. But she was like, I actually got really inspired, and I finished my I wrote down a bunch of stuff. I was stuck at one spot, and I was able to finish her feature that she was writing. So
and like the Eras tour movie like unlocked that for her?
Yeah, and she was like,
so amazing.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. And this is somebody who's like a seasoned writer. She's been in writers' rooms for a long time, in between a lot of her acting stuff, but and she's a regular on a show, a pretty well-known show. But to know that that's what it was, and I kind of tricked, like I helped her, you know what I mean?
Right.
My dishonesty actually really benefited her, so I don't know
right.
what it means.
I mean, sometimes white lies pay off, right?
Right, they do. And and I kind of digressed in that, but I went to the movie. And these little girls afterwards, first I came in hot. I was growing increasingly excited. Like I've gone to concerts. I've seen some people that I've really loved, right? And I have never felt that like childlike sense of just excitement as the day was going. I'm like, I end at work early, and I'm just completely over the moon that I'm going.
Yeah.
And I come in hot, and it's just the little girls in the back. And I think I knew it was just that because, you pick your seats at that particular theater. and I came in, I'm like, are you so excited? And I clearly terrified them. They didn't say anything to me. I took my seat. I turned around, I took my seat. And then we were jamming at the end, right? And the little girls waited. They were about to leave, and they came over, and they're like, "Can we give you a friendship bracelet?" And I am new to this too, and I didn't have any friendship bracelets, which is like not bringing a wine or a candle to a housewarming. I have never ever made that mistake again. Just so you know, I have so many friends. I call it the friendship bracelet factor. I'm very good at it. But they gave me Fearless, and they gave my friend Lover, and she gave it to me too. But I actually make sure that that particular friendship bracelet, like nothing happens to it, because right afterwards, my venue got back to me about the show, and then a mentor of mine too was like, I want to help you do this. She had gone to Eras with her and took her girls at Mile High, so she was like, I want you to do this. And the one thing we were talking about too, she was like, how sweet everybody was to each other. She's like, little girls are coming up to her teenage girls and asking like, what era is your favorite era? And everybody's so gracious and kind. She's like, I won't let my girls go to the bathroom by themselves at a Broncos game. She's like, go ahead. You know where we're sitting. I'm not missing a second of this. And so the one thing I wanted with my show too, I end my monologue like, what would Taylor do? And I list off all these things in one breath. And I say, and she does this all the while cultivating an environment where women and girls exchange friendship bracelets and are kind to each other. And so that was the biggest part that I wanted to bring in, because comedy, you know, we will do jokes at people's expense. We see the roast, and actually I like the roast sometimes. I think we need to like not be so fragile, and learn to laugh at ourselves, and learn to laugh at it with a bigger punch that other comedians can really throw. But I really wanted this to be like just a positive like show, even if we don't kind of like point at it, like I make sure it is. Even I do a segment called Bad Blood, and where my comedians with very little time have to roast people. But I really like hated that segment at first, because I was like, oh, we're roasting, and I didn't want to like put Kanye up and like have him have any time in my show, period, and have this negative experience. I don't want him to have any more time than the sentences I just referred to him as in this moment, right? Like, and so what I've done with it too is I've actually just put beloved figures, and it's an anti-roast, which I let my comedians know. But I'm like, all right, let's give it to Harvey Milk. Okay, we roasted Dolly Parton and Maya Angelou, because like we roast the unroastable, and what comedians have still kind of like are continuing to figure it out. My first show, Raphael Chastain really nailed it. He got it. He was like, he came for Maya Angelou with the backwards, like, all right, had to get all this done, did we? Thanks for fighting for my rights, you know? Like, he had much better jokes at the time, but just to keep
but
it
I think that's actually a great concept that also sort of is in its own way referential back to Taylor, because Taylor is sort of this inscrutable figure, right? Like that's what she has spent her whole life trying to craft, is this persona of just being absolutely unflappable. And so I think that, you know, given that she is one of those people who's almost unroastable, it's really interesting as a part of the show to be like, yeah, we're going to do a roast, but we're going to do it of other people like Taylor, who are these incredible role models. I think that's a really fun concept.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, I think, the most of the people are usually, they have been dead and gone, or they really are like, what are you doing? I wanted to put Malala up this last time, and I got X, but we had plenty of people that we still put in there. But yeah, like just, and it's really on my comedians too. Like, it is an anti-roast, so you know, lean into like the roast intuition, but then pull it back in the reverse of like, we're making, you know, it's just kind of a perspective and like kind of a character choice, I think. But it's a fun segment though. So
no, that sounds really incredible. And I mean, so you've really just had this sort of whirlwind experience over the last 9 months. You
have no idea.
Getting into Taylor, and then getting into the movie, creating your own segment, and now you are just like fully immersed
Yeah.
in Swiftiedom all the time. And so, what I want to do is talk just a little bit more about who you are and your life story. I want to take some time now and get into your manuscript, because as Taylor tells us, you know, she's written all of these songs, but what she wants us to think of when we listen to them is the memories that those songs have made
Mhm.
for us. And I know your experience is a little bit unique because you know, it's recent that you're really taking in all of these songs and processing them. So you're sort of processing them retrospectively throughout parts of your life. But when you and I were preparing for the podcast, you had sort of told me that there are a lot of songs of Taylor's that have actually helped you go back and do some healing on a really hard part of your past. So do you feel ready to sort of talk about that and tell us, like, in your you know, the parts of your past that Taylor's really helped you heal from, and where do you want to start with that?
Totally. And I think, you know, we've talked about, right, like, as I've consumed so much of her content in such a short amount of time, and I don't know every aspect too. It's almost, and I love to, like, how somebody said, like, Swifties back in this year were very cutthroat, and it's kind of definitely changed. But I've seen some stuff on the internet where there's like, prove it. I've been, you know, since this time, or blah blah blah, way before. Like, listen, I was following her when her parents were thinking of having her, you know, like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, listen, I know where I stand. I still have more to learn. She's a theater major. I went to school for theater. She's a theater major's dream. And, you know, I think as I've grown, like, as an adult, grown in as an adult, this is silly. I had some, like, chunks of my life where, like, COVID was definitely a very big kind of like, fall to your knees, stop digging, and just get well. And I had this really tough relationship that prior to that. And, you know, what I love about how she talks about All Too Well, right? It's now it's just means something very different to her. But I will say, when I listen to All Too Well, every single time, no matter what, and I listen to it a lot, Caitlin, we've talked about how long I listen to it so
It's the
much.
gospel. I mean,
There's so many layers to it, but, like, I have a spiritual experience every time. And
absolutely.
it's you and for me, like, I did do a lot of healing already around this. Like, I did a lot of work, period. But then there's just, like, and I think this happens for everything in life, right? Like, you lose a loved one, you come to understand it as you get older, and you re-grieve in a different way. You have an experience, and you get older, you continue to, the perspective shifts and adjusts and you understand it in a deeper, more meaningful way, or walk through it again in a different way as you continue to grab different experiences in life, and your understanding it gets richer all the way around. But when I listen to that song, there's just so much. First of all, I think even I didn't even need to know the story and how the band just kind of started playing with her as she's just, like, strumming these chords together, or, you know, and in a therapeutic way. But you can feel it. Like, it is such a band song where you're jamming, and to know that that's what happened, and they just kind of, like, in her way, in the way she will always need to be held, they just held her. And you know, something new comes from it every time, where I'm grateful, with just blast it with overwhelming gratitude when I think of how many people have been in my corner and have helped me get there, or have kept me going, or said the one reminder that I quickly dismissed, but now come back to it and think about how, you know, how generous it was for them to give that, to just feeling again like she was clearly stalking me when she wrote that. I get it's about Jake, but, you know, to have somebody, you and I've talked about that line that hits me every time. You called me up again just to break me like a promise, so casually cruel in the name of being honest. And it's just like, some people, right? And I'm not going to even, like, go at the hate. I'm not going to go at the hate of my ex, but there's, like, the maneuvers that people have when we don't have a tool or something in our skill set because we're being driven through insecurity, and some people's insecurities just come to like they come out just to pummel another person. And then sometimes I've done that too, but knowing what that feels like, oh, you just literally called me just to do this to me right now. Like that wasn't, you just said that one extra thing right at the end, but you kind of like did it like, oh, actually, I just wanted to call and say this one really nice thing to you, but actually, oh, but you're so immature. That's why I did it. Or like, not that, and I hate to use the word immature. I'm just kind of like building, making up something about it. But
No, I think the song
yeah,
Closure does the same thing in even a little bit more of a bitter way, you know, where she's like, yeah, I didn't need your letter that you clearly wrote to make yourself feel better. Like, you know, and it's that same sort
yeah.
of idea that it's like you think you're doing something to help us both find closure, but you're really just trying to assuage your own guilt.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that like in a way it's calling out like some willful ignorance too, right? Like I'm going to be willfully ignorant about that. I've seen that with past partners. I've seen that with me because I'm now at that point, hurt people hurt people. And it's also another new perspective, right? It's like you know, like it's not this enemy combative thing, like fuck yourself, whatever. And I think in some ways too, the initial part of that song and what's so healing about it is that, but then it's also like you did this. And the way I hear it now at my age and where I'm sitting today on this beautiful May 23rd, 2024, I I can see it from both sides, and it's the same thing. Like, you know, she's not a perfect person. I'm sure she's thrown out her cheap shots. I've thrown out my cheap shots more than that, you know. But like, so casually cruel, you know, in the name of being honest. It's what what a way to string some words together to really like boil down human nature when we don't have the emotional maturity and skill set to show up in just an honest and humble way, and we just react from these different places. And I think, yeah, it's so many elements of it, whether it's, you know, just lyrically all the way through, whether it's like the visceral feelings it evokes, whether it's yeah, just I could hear the instrumental on that song too. Sometimes that's just like I'm ready. And there's also the way that it kind of like lets go of a little bit of something every time too, still today. Like there's something energizing in that, you know what I mean? Like I'm a weird person. Sometimes a sad song can be my like it can be my workout song, right? It can be the
Yeah,
beat, like it can be somebody else's like Missy Elliott song, but I'm like, no, I'm actually pumped and I'm ready to go. I just listen all too well. But like
for sure.
there's like, you know, there's a grounding in reality on it in it to me. There's a while there's always like a release and a freeing of something, and also to belt that song at the top of your lungs, like that is my vocal warm up. If I need to get ready, I got to get on a call and do my job that, you know, pays the things, and I
Yeah.
need my voice to sound, you know, ready to talk and, you know, with coherency and confidence. I'm I'm there, and there's nothing more freeing than just like singing that song in the shower and just going for it. It's every aspect of it. I that has yeah continues to provide some healing element, but also some energy. And God bless her. God bless her for her coping mechanisms to pick up a guitar and just be sad and weepy and crying, and to give us those experiences that make us feel like girl, you could stop stalking me at any time. Like, thanks, but like, gosh, thanks for this. How do you have the
Right.
time to stalk me to write this song? You know what I mean?
Right. And it's just, it's crazy because she wrote these things to help her get through difficult emotional times. But what she's really done is created a coping mechanism that millions of women, millions of people across the
Hmm.
world turn to in their darkest moments. Really in the moments I feel like most commonly when you're like, I don't have any words for what I'm feeling. It is too heavy, it is too much. And we can turn to Taylor and somehow she has the exact right words every time. Um, it's just
Yeah.
such a magical and incredible thing, and part of the whole Taylor Swift experience. So you were saying that you went through a pretty intense breakup during the pandemic, or like right after the end
Like,
of the pandemic.
yeah, it was a pretty like rough on again, off again, and then like right in the beginning of pandemic and too. And actually I want to my last thing, what I love about to that all too well 10-minute version
Yes.
is that she's not afraid to go back, and we stand eras too, but this in a different way, to go back to original piece of work and have fun with it again. And I think for
Yeah.
comedians, right, like I can't tell how many sketches uh I haven't revisited, but when I do revisit, like those things that I can still pull from and like have fun and monkey around with it again and recraft it to give it a new life and get a new energy. I love that she just does that. It's, there's a lot of painters and folks like that that'll still, the piece is just never done for such a long time, and I love that she gives herself that. And I think that is one of the things that really points to her artistry all the way around. I mean, she's prolific as,
Mhm.
all get out, but like, yeah, I think how she honors her craft is she does it in a very different way, and I really
Right.
appreciate that. But yeah, going into like how that relationship really like affected me too. And I've had like a relationship that actually should have probably been more pivotal still in my life than this one that kind of like really uh brought me to my knees. But it was
Mhm.
this one, and it was this on again off again thing. Um and I hate, let's just say, I mean, it was toxic, let's be honest, and
I mean, but sometimes that's how it is, right? I
I
mean, that's what Tortured Poets taught us is, Joe couldn't even get the lead on his own breakup album because Maddie freaking devastated that woman.
I I still think that they were broken up. You and I've talked about it. I think that
Mhm.
they were coming in when Midnight's was happening, she's been
They
a
were
little
on
too
the
kind.
rocks, yeah, for a
You know what I
while.
mean? Bejeweled
Yeah,
maybe in love. Yeah, I think
yeah,
I've been a little too kind. So I think it was something that was really, whether they were really
Mhm.
holding on or they really needed to be really 100% sure. I think that they had been broken up for a while. I hope
Yeah,
so too, because I think she is. I mean, you and I are both doing this because, there's such a level of admiration for this person and gratitude, I think. And I hope that she did give herself the time and space to heal up. But also, if she didn't, God bless, and we still got you back. And uh,
yeah. Yeah, but
but
one of the craziest things is just that, even for the Taylor Swift, it's
right,
sometimes it's not the 6-year relationship that gets you down bad. It's the on and off again situationship that just really,
right,
really
and
digs into you. And sometimes it's like a drug, right?
oh, it's like I mean, yeah, and I've talked about, when I listen to "Don't Blame Me," like "My Drug
Mhm.
Is My Baby," I cannot relate more to like, no, there's so many of her songs I relate to, but I'm like, yep, yeah, it is. And I think are talking, when I think about that, there was a moment where I had this person, there was like not no contact, and I was doing a show at my theater. I had a sketch show, and I was bringing all my stuff back to the car. I was going back to meet with our director and get some notes, uh, I just heard "Feeling Antisocial" was playing Sudoku, and at this point, like I had her blocked, because sometimes that's what we need to do. I think a lot of times, we need to do that. But
Mhm.
um, we yeah, so she was just driving by, she saw me, and I I remember I unblocked her, and it felt like this heroin addiction. Like all of a sudden, like my dealer came around and was like, "Hey, you want this free sample?" Like I felt it in my body, like I need it, like to do
Wait,
it.
like
Like there was
you literally just saw her driving down the street and you unblocked her?
I didn't see her. She saw me. I was playing Sudoku.
Okay.
I was still sad.
Okay.
It had only been like a few days too,
Okay.
and I wasn't feeling good, but there was some sort of relief in my body because like we
Yeah.
weren't talking, right? And
Mhm.
I and then she had seen me parked and said, "Hey, I just heard the words like feeling antisocial." And I looked up, and she's like right there. I'm like,
Wow.
and then by the time I got home, I'm like, I tried not to, but then I unblocked her. I tried not to,
Ugh. Yeah.
but and then I unblocked her, and And it's just, it's the same chemicals though, right? When we do these things with people in a toxic way, and especially if we have like any, background from when that's familiar to that when we were younger, right? And we might not be able to put our finger on it, but if it feels anything familiar, we'll just repeat those patterns, right? And like,
Right.
but also it does the same things that any chemical dependency does. Everything, all the synapses, all the chemicals that fire in our brain, same thing. And I think in some ways when you see it and there's a healthiness about it, and there's two people that are meeting with the complete honest and open intentions, then great. Like fall in love, like you want to feel those feelings. But like sometimes now it's still those days, that those feelings I almost kind of chalk up to like, oh, it's fake and that's going to get me into trouble. And I think there's still a lot of healing uh in that already. But like, yeah, when I listen to like, oh, my drug made me, or my love made me crazy, and if I'm like, yep. And then there's sometimes too where I'm like, I'm gonna go and seek that out. Like, I could tell there was a couple times when I was just going out for the night and I might have gotten a little attention or something like that, and you're feeling that, right? It feels like a little hit of that.
Right.
And uh and then you're like game for it again, and you're like, what are you doing? This is so not in alignment. Once you have some
Yeah.
awareness around it, it's just not in alignment with what you want to do. But man, do I relate to that like so much. And I have a sneaking suspicion she's got a lot of self-awareness. There's a lot
Yeah.
of self-awareness that she has. And I think
Yeah.
when I listen to some of her stuff, I'm like, oh, you made this marketable. And I
Hmm.
wonder curiously, like, what were all like feelings that were underneath it. But this song is still marketable, and I'm sure there was still some more stuff because, if you're saying my drug is my baby,
Yeah.
like, let's talk about drugs in America, because she doesn't use words lightly, not once.
Yeah.
Everything's intentional. And so, yeah, I mean, it's, and also if you are dependent in that way on something, whether it's love or whether it's whatever, like, you're not in a good place. You're not happy, right? It's a
Yeah.
filler. It's a void filler. So, but it can feel sexy at times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I think False God also really,
oh,
really
I fucking love
captures
False
that
God.
feeling.
Hell yeah.
Jumping into the ocean of lies between us. Like
Yeah, dude.
False God is amazing. I
Hmm.
filmed an intimate scene for a movie once, and that's the song I had them play on set while I was filming because it's just such
Mhm.
an incredible song.
Mhm.
Um, but something that Taylor does a lot is refer to love as religion and to relationships as God. And that's she does it in Don't Blame Me. She does it
Mhm.
in False God. She does it in um, The Prophecy.
Yeah.
She does it
Just
in
want somebody like
What
her.
I Should. She really in Taylor's music, it's a recurring theme that um, love is religion and relationships are gods.
Mhm.
And I think that also just sort of speaks to the way in which she experiences these relationships, and also
Yeah.
what you're talking about, which is that when you become that devoted to somebody, it becomes spiritual. It's
Yeah.
very difficult to become disentangled from that. It's like trying to leave a cult,
Right. You're so right. And you know what man, yeah, this is I want to be concise. I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole. It's fine. But yeah, you're not wrong. She does do that. And again, the self-awareness, right? So it's like what she gives us, right?
Hmm.
I think is just the marketable, like the inside. And I think, she gives us so much, right? Like she doesn't just make it marketable. Like it's not losing anything once she is doing that. But like,
Right.
she really lets us in a different way. But I also think like, and from what I've experienced, I'm like, there's probably just so much more she does still keep to herself. And I think it's interesting to me, this person that the success she had, right? And I know we'll probably talk about some of this stuff a little bit later, but then, like 18, 19, when did that happen again? How old was she with the VMAs and Kanye? God, I hate
She was
saying.
19 when
Right.
the VMA incident
He's like
happened.
in his 40 or in his late 30s at that point, mid to late
He was
30s.
32. He was 32.
Kim's around the same age. They've got like 13, 14 years on her, right? That's a gap. That is huge. And I forgot about that too. I'm like, oh, she was a kid. And again, another level of understanding. But you think about that, what life has already been like before. She already identified as somebody that's awkward. We hear it in her music, right? Or like people don't like her or whatever. And yeah, girl, probably because you're always writing the songs and they're just like, they don't even know what to do with you. You're like, and I think that's something, as somebody who's neurodivergent, right? Like, and socialized from a bunch of neurotypical folks with those expectations, like it's still a constant battle for me to remember, like, I'm not dumb. My brain defaults to something in a different way if like I'm not hearing it. And sometimes maybe it is because I'm not well rested or I'm not whatever, but like also it just happens. But also I'm creative because of it. And like, if you're already that person that's like so into your stuff, like a salesperson of that, like for her family to move, like I couldn't have sold it at that age to make my mom move to Nashville, no matter how much promise I showed. And
I've
then
been an actress since I was 6, and I tried to get my dad to move to LA when I was like 10 or 11. It wasn't going to happen.
It wasn't going to happen. You didn't have the sales savviness like Taylor Swift,
but I think
not. But like all of it, right? There's just always this level of like insecurity. And I mean, I remember when I was like watching that clip too, and just because it came up and as I was consuming more and more information, and man, you just like want to go and give her a hug. And she was still so poised, and like how she articulated everything, she was still honest. Like she wasn't like, which I'm glad she didn't. She was just like, I was so excited, and then Kanye West coming up, so I'm excited, and then he said what he said, and I'm like, oh man, yeah. And so you think about it, and it's like this. I from what I hear of her, and I don't know this. I don't know her, right? Like I'm not delusional. I don't know her. Taylor, I don't know you. I'm rooting for you. Thank you, but I don't know you, and I understand that. But I think like what I hear from her music and her art is like somebody that there's still this like doesn't matter what she's done. She understands what she's done, but she doesn't understand like, do you know what kind of person it takes to do what you do? Like that part, and I relate to that part so much. I think yesterday I had a moment last week, but I was kind of talking through all of my achievements, just like a reminder. And I'm like, that feeling when you're always feeling like you're coming up from underneath, right? Like people telling me I'm resilient doesn't feel like a compliment anymore. It's like I don't want to be like that underdog. And you're like, whoa, I'm like, because I'm not. But then to always kind of pick that person that's going to string you along, and thinking about like, all too well, again, the age difference between her and Jake Gyllenhaal, the age difference between her and John Mayer. I'm like, and she's got this youthful side that of course she can't have that level of maturity, but whatever they say is going to affect her a lot. Her frontal lobe is not fully developed at this point. So like it's going to stick with her. And if they are not at a level of emotional intelligence, which I'm sure they weren't, there's some, Hollywood dudes still, it was not going to be kind. And already she's a female that's going to have like all of the challenges that come with being a female. So like and being socialized as one, she knows it with the man, but does it already sit in her body? She might know it, but does it sit in her body? And I think like, yeah, it's so easy to make love a drug, right? When that's you're this feeling of you're never going to get it. And it breaks my heart when I like the line she says about Joe, that you took all this youth for free. And like, what were you like doing, dude? Like, I understand. Yeah. What were you doing? Like, what kind of fake promises were you doing and pulling this person along? And like, nobody's perfect, but, like, come on. So does she make love a drug? Yeah, probably, but also that sad part of the prophecy is like, I just want somebody who likes my company. It's such a simple thing, right? I just want you to like, hey, of course, and we're always gonna have our things, but like at the end of the day, you're gonna realize and still appreciate like that I show up for you, and you're gonna want to show up for me, and like just that simple element of like what happens when you find like a partnership of mutual respect and like admiration and kindness. And like, yeah, I still hear it a lot different in the prophecy than I have in any other thing. I think there's like some level of like growth that she's really some youth that she's shedding, some of probably that old wounding, like that came from like dating dudes that were like never gonna be like handling that relationship with a lot of care, especially at the age she was at.
Yeah.
Big
No,
monologue there. You like it?
Right. No, but you make a lot of really good points just about how Taylor has grown and how the people around her have grown because of it. I think sometimes also that Taylor opens up the door for us as listeners to find those paths to maturity as well. Because we've heard her say one thing in the past, and then we hear her say something new in the future that is obviously growth. And that sort of helps us find the path too, as women trying to navigate that bridge from adolescence into adulthood, and especially in the modern era that we exist in. I think one of the things we often forget about Taylor, well, not necessarily, she talks about it in her music all the time, she talks about it in Miss Americana too, but that as a fan base, we love her so much. We're so devoted to her, and we pour this out to her all the time. But that's not the same thing as someone who enjoys company with you one-on-one. Like, the truth is, Taylor is such a like quirky, crazy person that 90% of Swifties would probably like have secondhand embarrassment spending time with her.
Ooh,
you know,
Caitlin.
Like, well, that's
you know what though? I'll push back on that because then I think
I am one of those quirky people that my friends constantly are like, you need to tone it the fuck down. Like,
you know what, Caitlin? F your friends. This is the thing. If
Thank you.
Okay, there's been some time, like I do think that there's some deserved secondhand embarrassment, but if it's because your friend is nerding out because of whatever, they're being just themselves and they're being the reasons why you still probably love them anyway, then you're just coming from a place of insecurity. So
no, I definitely agree with you, but I think that Taylor deals with that fear every day because in high school, that's what happened to her. She was too nerdy, she was too quirky, and nobody wanted her company, even though she was on stage every weekend.
Right.
You know?
I think there's something like, listen, I don't know how else they would have done it, but like, I can't imagine what Andrea and Scott were going through when she was young and she's dating like John Mayer or whatever. And like, God bless them, because I know if I wrote like her with the depth of honesty that she did, I mean, gosh, my mom would have been like, oh, are you kidding me? Like if I was talking about sex or anything like that or alluding to it. And like, that's gotta be a lot for a parent, but you know, they, much like I think Donna and Travis's parents too, like both sets of those parents did everything for their kids to do what they want, and clearly was their passion. But also in Andrea and Scott's side of things, like I don't question their parenting. I don't know how they did it, because also you have to let your kids make their own mistake, and at that point, girls making money, she can do whatever she wants, but like, you know, and I'm sure she's like so tired all the time. So, but what do? But you either support them or you kind of jeopardize like severing your relationship with your kids if you're like being a little too opinionated about their dating life. So but that had to been hard to see. And like, so, you know, I think I really think of like that, you know, when it comes to kids and how we're deeply affected by it and how we pull that in is one thing, but it's, you know, those ones that we look to and we want them to love us back and see us and see us in the way that we see the other person. Like, I think those are the relationships that really are impactful. And I think that's when we really start to repeat some old wounding, if you will. And like, again, I'm going to reiterate it. Her frontal lobe or frontal cortex was not fully developed yet. And you know, how do you continue to like identify if you feel safe in that or whatever? And so like I'm sure it has deeply affected her, and it's probably this thing that, you know, she thinks of herself in this one different specific way when it comes to relationship, or romantic relationship, you know. But anyway, it's a hard thing to shed. And I think that's why we all do love her, right? Because there's still all these old beliefs that she clearly still hasn't shed. We can all relate to that. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So on that note, coming out of your breakup and the devastation that you were going with, how did you start to shed that and sort of rediscover yourself?
Yeah, I really went inward for the majority of COVID was just that, like in doing that. I needed to kind of have like that hard reset. I think even when it came to comedy too, like there was a time where I was performing so much. I was running my own business and I was performing so much, and I could see where some things were starting to get a little traction, and some things that I still didn't believe in myself too. And I wasn't like going after getting representation in a steady enough way, or where just all my self doubt and the things that people would still tell me when I was younger would still kind of stick with me in that same way. But then already being predisposed to being um not self-supporting in my own esteem, and looking outward for it, whether it was that person, I had a lot of work to do. And so I really focused on doing that and like kind of healing up. I took a big break from even like a romantic thing. And I for a while too, didn't, I needed to be like in that place. Because I didn't want to perform, but also I think at that time during COVID, people were doing stuff on like Twitch or on, doing live
Mhm.
streams. And I just was like too ADHD for that, guys. Sorry. I mean,
Yeah.
God bless SNL still trying to do it for us, but like I couldn't. And um, so I just did that. I had, developed a really good spiritual practice. Again, I wake up every day, prayers, meditation. Within those prayers are a lot of gratitude for what I have. There's a bit, I think gratitude practice has changed from because I'm afraid of losing what I already have, where that's how I would kind of practice gratitude, like, oh, thank you, please don't take this away from me. But a grounding in reality, every day, starting your day with like 2 feet on the ground, like, hey, I'm grateful for my dog. He's right here, one of them. And
Mhm.
all these blessings that I have in my life that put a smile on my face every day, the food in my belly, hot water, indoor plumbing. Do you know how many places don't have indoor plumbing? Can't just go take a shower. Like all of these things that I get to experience and a lot of people don't. And how that kind of connects me with the quietness of the world, but like also all the things that connect us. And I needed that. And I think through that and like working with maybe doing a little EMDR, doing some more therapy and having a lot, not having to drive around across town to see my therapist, but now we're just getting on Zoom and, um, having more access in that way. It was really doing a lot of that. It was a lot of inward reflection, a lot of writing. I did the artist's way. I did a lot of things. But I think, you hear people like talk about, addiction or whatever, and like they bottom and then they stop digging, right? You have to give
Mhm.
up at a certain point. Some addicts don't even stop, do that. But at a certain point, knowing what that felt like, um, I was like, oh, yeah, I can just something's not working right now, right? And
Yeah.
so COVID was like a lot of that. And then also like looking at the career that I have or was working on that pays my bills, where maybe even I have a lot of energy. So my creative ambitions and pursuits have never, you know, I prefer having a good solid income. That makes that better. So focusing on that because Lord knows I do want to retire one day. And if that continues to take off and it becomes the income that replaces that, perfect. Um, but that also makes that better, right? Like what I do in sales actually makes me a better artist too, because I can think about that. If I don't have a full house, that's terrible for a comedian. And I know how to market now and I know how to prospect, as you would say. Like I've always known how to do that. But like, as I've grown professionally, I was looking at my next step in my career journey in that way and both sides of things, but like focused more on the one that pays the bills a little bit. So it was a lot of those things. And it's like we talked about too, down bad, right? And like some of the new things
Yeah.
that have really been giving me those same feelings from All Too Well. And I think about, you know, it's not like I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so smooth this whole like time during COVID and like found all this inner peace. It was a lot of back and forth. And I think as you do a lot of writing, you do a lot of self-reflection, you're peeling back an onion, and something new comes up and just being like teenage, yeah, petulant years, like, yes, I want to break everything right now. There was days like that too. And like, uh,
Yeah.
but it was always, but I was able to take something more from it though too, because I think when you start your day or you have a good steady practice, especially as somebody who's neurodivergent with a lot of energy like myself, um, I hate that I hate that the ADHD is the thing, right? Because attention
Mhm.
deficit disorder, it's not a disorder. My brain is just like dopamine deficient. It's not a disorder though.
Moves really fast. Yeah.
It just moves fast, or yeah. And actually, as some ADHD thought leaders will say too, it's like, I'm sorry that you were just slow in talking too, you know? So, but also like I'm already predisposed to irritability and things like that. When you are socialized and neurotypical and like expected to do that, like, you know, those big feelings come up, and like teenage petulance, like, yes. And
Mhm.
but the blessing of being able to sit down every day, and I didn't miss a like day of like prayer, meditation, gratitude, all of that for like 20 months, and like never missed a day, not
Wow.
one
Yeah,
day,
that's
which was
awesome.
right. So giving yourself that gift, you can pull something from that. You can say, what is it? I was in a place where I could be like, why are you feeling it? You're feeling a feeling. What's your feeling? Instead of the immediate thought going to, you're a bad person, you know?
Mhm.
Didn't need
Mhm.
to be anything. I could always just go right to, I'm a bad person. But I think that ability to give us like that self-reflection was huge for me. And I think, man, when I listen, it's I actually, when you and I talk to, it's like something new pops up right in my head. And of course, probably some of that is because ADHD, but like, you know, I've gotten to see my life really transform. I've gotten to see also like
Mhm.
in comparison where maybe from folks where I come from, like they don't, that's not what they have, right? You know, it's not encouraged and from this small town in Wisconsin culturally to do that self-reflection and that work in that
Mhm.
way. You know, I come from a very small town, but also like, you know, they don't see it and then they don't leave town and then they kind of just repeat in a very, you know, hyper focused way, the same exact ways that they were raised and how they interact with their children. And you know, I get to see these blessings that I give to myself by doing that, uh,
Mhm.
and having a different experience with a lot of different understanding, and more understanding I have, a lot more grace I have for myself. If I have a lot more grace for myself, I can continue to do the onward and upward, you know,
Yeah.
spiral. And I love, you know, looking at down bad, it's like, oh man, there's such like embarrassing honesty about it. Yeah, I act like a
Mhm.
child sometimes. My feelings will make me feel like, oof, a child. And I, again, thanks for stalking me, Taylor. You can just come say hi next time, girl. I'm
Right?
here for you.
You know, though, I think that's one of the best parts of her music, though, is, you know, we talked earlier about how there's so much maturity in her music, and you can see the growth of maturity from older albums to newer albums and those themes that sort of carry through. But at the same time, she also provides us with songs that allow us to be completely immature in those moments when what you need most is to let those societal constructs fall away. And I
100%.
think that that's something that Taylor talks about a lot in her music and is really good at exemplifying because, I mean, nobody is more bound by societal constructs than Taylor herself, right? I mean,
Totally.
she is the American princess. She is the good girl. You know, she's the only millennial celebrity child star to not have had a publicly blasphemous drug or alcohol problem.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
well,
and so the way that Taylor allows us to also strip away those societal expectations and be petulant, be a teenager, cry our hearts out. And, you know, sometimes all we need is that 3 minutes and 30 seconds of screaming that song in our car, and then
oh,
you
yeah.
can compose yourself and be a fucking adult again.
Oh, yeah. And also there's just like, right. Exactly what you're saying. And it's like, I, this is what I know. Here's what I know. Here's a little bit of a pro tip for me. If I continue to beat myself up for the thing or feeling the thing or whatever the thing, I will continue to do that thing more and more. But if I can
Mm,
have some grace, I can name the thing. I'm acting like a child. I'm sitting in a dirty diaper right now. I am willfully hanging on to my victimhood for right now, right? Justified
mhm.
anger. Then I'm gonna continue, right, to do that.
Right.
But if I say that I can do all these things and I have some grace for it, then I'm going to learn and grow from it. And I'm going to have a different experience the next time. So I like how, and I think, again, that's probably a big reason why, like,
Yeah.
I couldn't look away, right? I think it's something that Andrea Gibson does too. And like, there's this one short poem, and it's like like 5 words or something. Like, and I can't remember it for the life of me. Of course, I should memorize this, but it's like, it's something like love. That's what made me insane. And you're like,
Yeah, that's it.
right. But again, it's like just this honesty, just this thing that like some people are really actually just still too afraid to say that, right? That the actual feeling behind it, the thing that we think everybody's going to roll their eyes at, right? Maybe we tell our therapist, but like, but yeah, I don't know. It's the part, it's one of the parts of the art that she gives us and shares with us that I am so grateful for, because it gives us all so much more permission. And yeah, there's so many things I could probably say about that, but we have so little time.
So going from there, then what for you was sort of your I can do it with a broken heart moment, that moment when you throw out the teenage petulance and said, I'm a real tough kid, I can handle my shit, I'm gonna let go of this breakup and get back on the saddle? What was that for you?
Can we just say, you can do it with a broken heart, babe. Keep going. I'm so much happy.
Yes, queen.
I mean, the shows in and of itself, I think, as she knows her fan base truly does care about her. But like, there is such a like, man, your best friend feels good right now. You know what I mean? And we're like, girl, but yeah, you can do it with a broken heart. I don't even know how. Like, I can barely get out of bed if I my period. What is going on? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I think it was the natural progression too. And thanks for that question. Like, I think, when you do the things that, and you can take your space away from whatever, and you get that clarity. And again, some of the things that I set up and I was doing, having a pretty steady practice, meditating, gratitude, doing the things that grounded me, which is farther and farther away from that chemical experience, right? That it's not true, right? It's not, well, if that person did love me, then a lot of things would have been different, right? So you're able to see in some clarity, because you're out of the fog now, that that's not true. The things that I'm grieving weren't true to begin with. And then, I think that constant of being able to, like, you disrupt this pattern of thinking, you're doing it with like a different practice, but now you can actually do it throughout the day, where I remember like having big feelings throughout the day, and I was, kind of scooting around in Los Angeles, and there's something, I can get a lot of feelings when I'm in the like behind my windshield if there's something going on in my life. And I remember thinking, oh, you're having some feelings right now. Why are you having those feelings? And I pointed to all the things, because, oh, I love this person, and I just wanted them to love me. Oh, I wish they would have just said this. I wish they actually would have fought, and it wasn't this performative thing. I wish that they didn't call me so casually cruel in the name of being honest. I'm having those feelings, and there's still some whiplash, even if it was one of the things that they had said, a couple years prior to that. Like, it's all kind of like, it's like withdrawing, right? You're withdrawing from a drug, you're not having that constant like chemical reaction from your brain, and your synapses aren't just firing all the time and like getting burnt out because you're in this dance. And so the more, I think, clarity you get, right, from that, you start to appreciate again in a really big way. You fake it until you make it, baby. And I did. And that really is true. Like, I think at any point, you either have something so passionate that either makes you forget about that, right? And you're like, oh, and you're immediately like next to each other. This thing outweighs this thing is nothing to me now, right? You can either do it quick, but if you've been doing the dance for a little bit and you get that space, sometimes you just need to start in the place of fake it till you make it. And I'm fortunate. I have a band, but not my, it's not her. Just like she's got the band, I've got my crew of people that remind me, and still to this day, hey, if I want to beat myself up for something my neurodivergent brain wants to do, and not be as polished as maybe a neurotypical person, uh, they're still going to kick me because I'm the one that's beating myself up too,
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
eventually that I'm a big believer in fake it till you make it. I don't think fake it till you make it doesn't mean not feel your feelings, not do the other stuff, but I really think that's really came down to. And at some point I chose to do it, and I also turned a lot of things over, and sometimes we have this false sense of control, like we have control over anything, right? We
Mm-hmm.
really don't. The only things we ever have control over are ourselves and our second thought. That's the only thing we ever have control over. And I think for most people, when we find problems, it's because we think we have control over it. And that doesn't mean say like, oh, you can't like get into footwork and do something and reach for whatever, but like you're never going to be able to change another person. You're never going to be able to change like certain, a lot of things. And unless it's you and it starts with you, and you're thinking around it. So, yeah, I think when you can get out of that fog and get into that clarity, like that was just a gift. So, and fortunately, I got to do it when the world was shut down, and I needed to have the world shut down a little bit. And not to say that COVID wasn't terrible for everybody, right? But like there was something, I think people that made it through COVID, there was something kind of like nice with that quietness that we were all forced to have.
There's some breathing room
Yeah,
at that time that
the world moves
allowed,
so fast. Yeah,
yeah, allowed some transitions to happen. I think allowed a lot of people to reevaluate their priorities.
allowed somebody else to write
Um,
2 albums because she doesn't stop. Gosh,
God, that woman never sleeps.
jeez.
Never sleeps. Oh my
I
gosh.
really want to know, does she has to sleep. There's just no
Right?
way.
Well,
I
jet
wonder if
lag's
she
a
just can
choice. So
crash. Huh?
jet lag's a choice. Didn't you know?
Oh, I heard that. Jet lag's not a choice I mean, sure, it's a choice if you have probably like a Casper mattress in your jet,
In
but
your
like,
jet, right?
right. But I mean, God bless. Also, I do think that there's something to that, right? Like, if you're going to enjoy a vacation, trust me, I'm going to listen. If there's nothing that girl does for me, it is totally inspire me, like,
Yeah.
but I wonder if she's just somebody who can just like like she just zonks out and
Oh yeah.
sleeps. She has to.
I have a friend like that who like comes over to hang out sometimes, and then like he always does like booty calls really late at night. And so
Cute.
he'll come over to our house and we'll start watching TV, and he'll like pass out at our kitchen table sitting up and just like sleep in that position for hours until this girl texts him. He's like, I want to be awake when she calls me at 1 a.m, but I'm gonna sleep right here where I'm at. Like Taylor must be exactly like that. Like she can just fall asleep where she's
Take the
at.
Z's where she can. Yeah. Travis can do it. Travis talks about that all the time too. And I think, yeah, because he would talk about that especially when Chiefs have done a lot of the international games. So they
Yeah,
played
they
in,
do a lot of ambassadorship type stuff too.
well, I mean, I have never really looked at all 32 teams. But so they do some international games. The NFL is trying to grow that, right? And but the Chiefs have been like a part of those games. Like I feel like more than some other teams, but
Mm-hmm.
like the Packers will be in Brazil, I want to say, for the first game against the Eagles this year, which I'm like,
Interesting.
I know, but you kind of want to give the fans like at home, I think the first game, it doesn't matter. But when they went to Germany, it was a big reason. He's like, oh no, I'm fine. You just tell me, just give me a pillow and I'll sleep. And
Yeah,
and the Chiefs actually came out and they rocked it too. So all
that's
of them were
awesome.
ready for it. There was no jet lag there. They're like ready. So
Yeah, that's
anyway,
amazing.
man.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's talk a little bit more about your boss girl era and where you are now. Like you've gotten a new job recently. You've been running this comedy show for about 6 to 9 months now that you've been doing this bit. How is all of that going for you?
Well, so yeah, I so when did they start? In September, I think, is probably where my Swift Swiftiness started, and then
Okay.
it's been no looking back. And I decided to do the show probably in October of last year.
Okay.
I like started, thinking about it, and then
So did you
once I,
see the movie before you started performing?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
but I had gotten the confirmation from my theater, from my venue, when I got
Mhm.
out of the movie theater.
Oh,
So
that's so
I know I
funny.
got this fearless bracelet from this little sweetie, and this sweet little Swiftie. And then I opened my email. They confirmed it. I'm stoked. A friend of mine's like, you know what? I'm going to help you put up some of the capital
Perfect.
with it too, which I was
That's
fine with. But she was like, I believe in this. This is going to be great. So a lot of things happened in that night, and
yeah.
it was really
I
great.
mean, Karma's your boyfriend.
Karma's my boyfriend. Matt, that's such a
That's
weird
one
thing.
of those days when you're like, yeah, Karma
Right.
is a boyfriend. Karma is a god. Karma is mine.
Yeah. And I think
Love it.
so. I'm actually transitioning between roles right now too. But yeah, I did. I was with an organization that, um, I'm gonna say this though, like, gosh, if it wasn't for this person, again, I'd be like, what happened? I'm like, no, that was, it just wasn't a good fit for me. Period. Done. And
Mhm.
uh, definitely believed in the mission statement. A lot of people like the mission statement. But sometimes culture, there's a lot of talk about a culture, and then there's not a lot of walk about a culture.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm at a certain point where I'm like, no, actually, these are important things, and I don't need to make myself small.
Yes.
But so I did the show in January, sold it out March, same thing. Joy had messages too, so it was so great to see the cardigans coming in. There was a lot more Swifties the second show. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
people.
Awesome.
One of the people that went to the Torches Poet department listening party, like, recognized me and had gone, and which is so great. And uh, it's been such a blast. I've had some really great comedians do it. I want to do it soon. I'm actually looking for another venue right now, and I'll say, like, I was given really good advice, especially for a new show,
Mhm.
to do it at the same day of the week at that same theater for at
Mhm.
least three shows, selling it out. So you are building that, right, that
Yeah.
foundation.
You should
And
try to bring it down to the Improv in Orange County.
I don't even know what the Improv would be, but that's a big venue
It's
too.
yeah, it's a cool venue.
I know the Bray Improv. Because I used to do mics down there too.
Yeah.
But they I'm still at that's a pretty big. I think there's a lot more seats than. And as a comedian, it's a different thing when you don't
Mhm.
sell out something. So,
For sure. It
uh,
affects the energy in the room a
100,
lot, I'm sure.
listen, we need that laugh affirmation. You know what I mean? And and it is just like this give and take with the audience. So having that is really important to me, especially bringing on the comedians that I had last month, or the last time we did it. I had the good fortune of working and having Sahana Srinivasan and Hannah Pilkis on. They were phenomenal. Hannah's a big Swiftie. I didn't know that before, like the day
Oh,
or two
that's
before the
awesome.
show. Sahana's still Swift curious. We love it. Uh, and so I've had some really great folks that have been on it. And what I do love too is, like, not always having Swifties as far as my comedians that are competing. So
Mhm.
um, so I but yeah, getting back into performing. And again, I think, doing it in a different way, right? Like, I used to be on sketch teams with different theaters. We lost a lot of theaters during COVID. Second City's no longer here. UCB closed one of the theaters, which is fine. Franklin's amazing. But even the Pack, which is where I was primarily at, that theater row was sold. The whole building was sold. They couldn't
It's
make
a
it a
shame.
historical landmark in time, which is awful because there's some really iconic. But uh, I did, but I didn't also want to do that too again. And, like, I wanted to do something, and it took a lot. Like, I haven't produced something all entirely on my own, and then also performed in it. And so I learned a lot, and this has all been a part of, like, yeah, my comeback, to not only sell out a show once, but then do it twice, to have a show look aesthetically pleasing, which I remember a comedy friend of mine. I was working on the first show, and she's like, God, the show's really curated. And I'm like, so is Taylor Swift. Watch it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if I knew if Swifties were going to come out and I needed my new friend group. Like, I knew where expectations would be. We are now already trained to love a beautiful something. Like, she gives us a show, right? And I haven't even gotten to see Eras yet. I'm trying to get to Europe. We'll talk about that later offline. But I need to see the
Swifties are all about the aesthetic. Yeah.
Swifties are all about the aesthetic. So to have like something that has been when I look back at the recording, I'm like, oh, this looks great, and I did this. I've had a graphic designer and people do that, but and then to also make sure that the jokes are there. It's funny. I pulled in. I'm so happy. She's a dear friend of mine, and she was in Chicago for quite some time, but we've been friends since we were I think since 2012. My friend Allison Reese. You can see her doing her Kamala Harris impression on the interwebs. She's had a lot of success with that. It's very funny. She's brilliant. She's hilarious, and she came in as my referee this last month, and it couldn't have been more fun. Her and I did a segment, just us two, after halftime. We are never ever getting back together, and we just went through like famous couples like the Fugees, and Lauryn Hill. We do want them to get back together. We decided who we wanted to get back together and who, whatever. Adam McKay and Will Ferrell. You're doing well on your own, and we have a lot of respect for you, but I would like you to get back together. Allison is at peace with it. But that's all been a part of this comeback, right? Like, you heard her in her her excited way when she was announcing Tortured Poets at when she won the first Grammy of the night that she won, and her love for like cracking that bridge and getting in there. That is, and this too, like that thing that fills you up, and it's like I can be doing anything, but if my juices and my creative juices are being met, right? Like if Travis isn't playing football or he's not doing something that's lighting him up, it would be a much different day for him. If she's not doing what she does, it'd be a much different day or week. When I, to get back to the thing that I was actually kind of at a certain point was holding back. I did what I did, but then it was like too long, right? My life is fuller. I am a better citizen moving through the world. I need to do that. And to kind of elevate it too, and bring all the things that I know how to do well in a professional sense too, and sell it out or and market in that way, I think has been helpful. And it's also been the thing that I've gotten to like, that whole like I can do it with a broken heart, right? Like this is actually the thing that's going to keep me going through, and to always have that foundation. So yeah, it's been the biggest part, and so much has changed in just 9 months. And what I do love about her too is there's something that I'm happy that she's found love with this nutbag that I find so endearing, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and how he approaches his craft and football in the game. He's just an athlete, man. Him and his brother both. I love Jason, but like to see this Midwest pair really come together and like be a couple of knuckleheads is great. And there everybody gets inspiration from somebody, right? She gets inspiration from a bunch of different places. I'm really grateful that she's been such a source of inspiration, and like also to keep me going too. Like I remember before the first show, just being really tired. I just had a work trip, got back. Of course, I'm making the bracelets, I'm doing all this stuff, but I had to just finish out like the last couple segments, and I was face planted on my couch in the office, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. And then I realized like the thing that I wrote in my monologue too about what she would do, and comedically I'd do it all in one breath. And I'm like, and she doesn't like cultivating a relationship or an environment where women and girls are kind to each other and exchange friendship bracelets. I'm like, get up right now. And she would walk out of her apartment in New York and like be camera ready. And I'm like, I can't even do that half the time. No, get up right now. So
get up.
Yeah, and like obviously, Taylor, if you need a rest, we're good with that too. Like, please take care of you. We love you. But
Right, but we're
There's
gonna
time.
tell ourselves to get off our asses because
Right, right.
no matter how much Taylor
You've already
wants,
done. You've given us enough of that. We know what you can do. You can take
we're
a
never
rest too
gonna
at any
work as
point.
hard as her.
Right, right. We also, want you around forever and ever. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I think that's it. And also like comedy used to just do that to me, right? Too. And I think maybe sometimes maybe that's what I needed. I do think about it a lot, but I wasn't getting that same source of inspiration from comedians, or I wasn't, and it was probably because I was so disconnected within myself too.
Mhm.
Like I still did, but not like this. And I love that I get it from this different source. I have a lot of disagreements, especially politically, with Tom Brady. But like even getting back into football season, which is kind of just a good pastime for me, um, and coming up against like one of his things too. It's his one of his old documentaries that I saw a long, long time ago. But there was just this belief in himself, right? And there's like this through line with like people that have had like different levels and have actually still of success and still have happiness. But it's
Mhm.
just complete belief in herself, themselves, her, him. I see it with Travis. Like there's no doubt in his head, like this is what he's going to do and go out and play the game this way. When
Yeah.
he's Simone Biles on the floor, or on the beam, and so is she, and she is a singer songwriter. She is who she always thought she was when she was, however old, before she started even learning the guitar, and she just made everybody listen. Tom Brady did the same thing, and
Yeah.
199, round. He was the 199th pick in the 6th round, and he became the greatest quarterback of all time. All the things on the scout report was, oh, but you don't need any of that to, for quarterbacking. And I'm like, gosh, she, regardless, people love to hate her, and
Yeah.
it's funny too, because like even I don't know how it came up in my feed, but Megan Kelly, kiss my ass.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing? In what realm, Megan Kelly, do you think like you being judgmental about Taylor Swift is going to help you? Also, it just makes you look like that girl too. Like, God, Megan Kelly, be better. We need actually better Republicans. Be better. Why are you
I
also like
if
perpetuating?
if
God,
Megan Kelly gets under your skin, by no means go and watch Candace Owens' Taylor
I'm not
Swift
gonna watch
segment.
anything about Candace. That was an accident that Megan Kelly, but I'm like, really?
Oh,
And not that I'm
yeah.
saying Democrats are much better these days too, but like, you know what? Megan
But
Kelly,
either way, why are political commentators
a
talking about Taylor
hundred,
Swift?
100%. And like also, Megan, what a joke, Megan Kelly. Like what you and whatever you have to say about Travis. Again, another point of a person that's like Megan Kelly's. I don't know how old she is off the top of my head. I'm gonna say she's probably in her 50s at this point.
Yeah, something like that, late 40, early 50, yeah.
Again, you're going after kids in relation to you, who are wildly more successful than you, who do what they do leaps and bounds better in their own craft than you do. And she's got an army of people that love her. This is the hill you want to die on? Megan Kelly, brighten up. Come on. Like, please. Like, the fact that some women still want to perpetuate like the beating up of another woman, what a
Mhm.
choice. Like, go take a shower, take a refresh. And, same thing with Kim.
Yeah.
God, now I'm getting on a thing.
No, but
She's
I
making
mean, that's
amends.
really, I think, one of the biggest things about Taylor, period, and it sounds like one of the things that's drawn you to her so much is that she really exemplifies this concept of women supporting women. And
Right.
she does it first by putting out music that provides support to her fans and
Heck
then
yeah.
encouraging them to use that music to support each other. And I think that just creates this whole community that is really what is so incredible about Taylor Swift and
Totally.
about Swiftie.
I also got so heated there.
You did. You
It
got a
just
little
like
heated
actually
there.
it just popped on like last night. It was like one of the last things I saw, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like the fact of the matter is we've always had to overcome this way of being raised and socialized as women, right? Like we
Yeah.
are told we are less than in so many different ways. The fact of the matter is like if Justin Timberlake had her level of success, oh my, like he would, like the Queen would have knighted him, even
Yeah.
though he wasn't British. You know what I mean? Like even though he wasn't from the UK, this girl just is scrutinized even more. And we do it, and we continue to do it, and we continue to do it to each other. And it's like, man, poor choice, you know? And like, I
Mhm.
think when it comes to, right, I don't know how genuine it is. I don't know this person, Taylor. Listen, I think it might be, but like, you know, same thing I told you, like when it came to when I was watching some of that old stuff, like she was that prom date on MTV, and the through line is, regardless, like she is so kind. Her first thing out of her mouth, whoever she meets, is, "That's so pretty. You're
Yeah.
so pretty." I don't care if that's whatever. She leads with a compliment.
No
And
matter who she meets.
no
Yeah.
matter who she meets, and because of that, the hello, you're a great, you know, Oliver Mills, we all know and love him too. Like we can see what she's mouthing. He's a fully grown man at this point, getting the 22 hat. Your videos are so funny. Like she has
Yeah.
all she does is, and for most of these people, if she did it to me, my life would be, Taylor Swift said, I mean, like that is changing somebody's not
Right.
just
That's
weekday,
that's
that's
all
year.
I would be
A
the first
hundred.
thing that I've ever said to anyone. It's like, "Hi, my name is Caitlin. Taylor Swift compliment."
Right. And the smallness of other people, and because, right, whatever, like I don't know why you think like this is the route you want to go with your career, Megan Kelly. Actually, Kelly's got some talent, right? Like she's
She's a great
camera ready.
commentator. She
She's can
is.
be a good commentator, and she uses that and deliberately chooses to do it, to put down another woman, to put down somebody who's like the greatest tight end of all time. Like, who are you? Like that is a woman that's responding out of a place of insecurity.
Yeah.
And what I do hope, and you know, see, like I can see it and I can have a lot of grace for it, but at first I'm going to get heated about it. And
Yeah.
it's just like, because I want us to do better. I want to do better for me.
Right.
I want us to do better. And this person has done nothing but consistently lead with a compliment when she initiates anything. And then we've got, you know, somebody on this side who actually like, well, I'm going to lead with tearing you down. Cool. Great. Let's just keep on doing that, you know? Why can't we all just
Yeah.
collectively choose to be better to each other,
Exactly.
you know? Done, period. And
Right.
I
Well,
think,
and I
yeah,
I think that's really what Taylor represents all around
100.
is, just being better to each other and being better to ourselves, understanding our own emotions and then learning to forgive ourselves for those things.
Can I actually say though, you know, we talk
Yeah.
about like the big comeback and like how we've, you know, and looking at this chunk in my life too, right? That has I've come to even more understanding, right? And with these perspectives that as I'm like, you know, just consuming her music all the time and
Mhm.
everything. But like that point to like be so intentional with my show, to like uplift and keep it a positive thing, that is the recovery. That is
Yes.
those things that I can point to. I'm like, I don't want to take cheap shots. Comedy doesn't need to take
Yes.
cheap shots. Robin Williams, you know what he never did? Cheap shots. He just transition to a character to another funnier point and you know a comment on how and human characteristics, you know what I mean, and human
Yeah.
behavior, but he didn't take cheap shots. She doesn't take
I love that.
cheap shots. She didn't take cheap shots with Thank You Amy. She was actually like,
No, it's
man,
very well crafted.
I without you I wouldn't have done this. And like
Yeah.
and in some ways I think there is, maybe there's that little casually cruel a little bit of it, but like in the name of being honest, but it is like I actually wish you would have apologized. You didn't
Yeah.
though, and but thank you, because I built this legacy. And I
Right.
yeah, so my big comeback is for me to want to desire that, shows me that I've done a lot of healing. That shows
Yeah.
me that there's no impulse to do that. I want this actually, like, I want everybody to leave feeling really good about themselves, about what they just experienced, and a place where they can turn to their neighbor even if they didn't know them, and they be like, hey, do you want to exchange friendship bracelets, and maybe go and grab a drink in the
Oh,
bar and meet each other. Like that's the thing that I want to do, and I hope to make it like a live podcast at some point too,
that's
much
awesome.
like a Love It or Leave It and Wait Don't Tell Me. But and it's, yeah, so it's so great. And these are all the things that I've gotten to pull from her too and have truly inspired it. So that is a big part of this comeback, and being back in my craft and doing the thing that lights
Yeah.
me up, that makes me a better person in all areas of my life. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's incredible and fantastic that you've been able to make that comeback and really find that self, and that she's inspired you. It's just so great that she's been able to sort of help you find that center, that way of centering yourself, and just being comfortable with where you're at, and also just committing to being a girl's girl, right? And always backing people up. So I think the note that I want to sort of ask on or end on is what what has becoming a part of the Swiftie community done for you? What does the community really mean to you now that you're a part of it?
Man, and I still keep on looking for it, right? Like that's why Joy did what she did when starting SoCal Swiftie. And I think my first interaction with Joy is I'm going to give shout out Joy. Shout out Joy.
Shout out Joy.
All the magic we made. Is that what it is? All the magic we made and SoCal Swiftie. Joy, this girl,
Yes.
Let me just say this. In marketing too, I reached out to her because I had just missed something that they did, whether it was like the tea party or something. And I reached out to her, let her know I was doing this show. But if you're not following each other on Instagram, it's going to go to that other inbox. And she found it right in the nick of time. And I asked her if I could just monologue real quick so I could fill her in on what I'm doing. And because there's a halftime part where I've had some pretty great drag queens. Shout out Siri, shout out Ms. Cake Moss as Taylor Swift. But I really want to do a segment where a seasoned Swiftie teaches a new Swiftie something, and then I would teach them something about football. Like
cool.
A tight end isn't what it sounds like.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They're actually very
versatile. Fun.
Yeah. And when she reached out, she came in with like so much excitement, and she got on the phone with me, and she was so generous with her time, and we talked through some things too. And I very lovingly requested that she make some really cool androgynous merch, because I'm like really here for that. Like I think we just need like a little androgynous merch to be cute, right? So we were just talking about it, and certain things that she gave me as far as advice too was actually really she gave me so much like good like advice, and we just got to take what we both liked and left what we the rest. But we also I took most of her advice because she was wrong, and she really was thinking about it like in a way of like elevating a business and continuing to pursue something. And I think that's really but from the little girl that gave me a friendship bracelet, right, to the person that I saw at Trader Joe's the other day wearing an Eras t-shirt, and I'm like, oh my god, I love Taylor. And they're like, I'm here, thank you for being here with me. And then to my right there was somebody with a Packers store. It was a lot. I was having a lot of good things happening that day. But little girls giving me a friendship bracelet that says fearless, to Joy being so kind and generous and gracious, and she still is that, right? To everybody we got to share space with at the Torture Poets department party, everybody's just like, we just like love this person, but also like there's something like nice about being able to like kind of get in the weeds of it, whether there's like some theory or whatever. But like, listen, Taylor Swift she's the theater major's dream. Like I break down a Sam Shepard play, like she allows us to break down her body of work. And like, I'm looking for subtext. I'm looking for the things he's not saying, but but he is saying it in a way, if you miss it, where it can inform how I direct that play, or whatever the case may be. But it's the same thing. And that lights me up when I'm like breaking down some text. And I think, we all love this thing, right? She gives us this puzzle. She gives us these layers. She gives us the things that like, whether, I haven't had the longevity as I know, and I admit to, I'm being honest, I know y'all have had a lot of longevity compared to me, but, things that I know are, have this emotional, nostalgia, right? Like the way she's pulling in everything in eras. I think the more I watch eras, I'm like, oh, you were doing, and now I'm seeing it because I'm consuming that era now in a different way. But and for people that were with her at that time, like she's pulling in all these different memories too and layering it. There's so much depth to everything that she does, and we're all here just to kind of celebrate it. And I think my experience with Swifties have been really great. Like I love the little rabbit holes. I think sometimes we get a little delusional, but so does my other family. You know what I mean? Like that I was born to. And like I love what the delusion looks like there. I would have never signed the petition, she got to make her own mistakes, if she, Maddie. But I love that somebody did start a petition because they really care about her, But
Swifties are just so invested in
I
everything. We're
mean,
so invested.
yeah, we gotta let people take a note from Andrea and Scott. You gotta let her make her own mistakes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that it's a reflection on her, but it's also a reflection of Swifties. Like if you're drawn to this person and you're at this Eras concert and all walks of life are saying, hey, what's your favorite Eras, and exchanging friendship bracelets, it's also saying that about you too, because you're drawn to her. And there's a lot of people that are not drawn to her, and not that I'm saying that they're all wrong or they have something bad in them, but I think that it's the whole, right? It's the cumulative that thing that makes it so special. So I've really loved, I've had, it was so exciting to see all the blue cardigans in my last show, and oh my God, I was backstage, I'm like dying inside of like just complete joy, the same way that my heart melted when those little girls gave me a friendship bracelet for the first time. And
amazing.
Like man, life's hard,
Yeah.
Why not enjoy some artist's work who continues to give it to us for us to experience in a different way, just like some of the best playwrights or other artists, and do it with like a little positivity. Life is too tough already, and the world is hard, and why not embrace the joy part of it? So, and I think that's been my experience so far. Knock on wood. I hope that's the case all the time, but yeah, it's been great.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much,
Oh my God,
Kelsey,
Caitlin, thank you
for coming and sharing your story and just telling us about yourself. Your comedy segment is so amazing. Do you have any shows coming up?
We're waiting for a venue.
Okay.
In July for sure. I'm really looking because I want to get. I would like to get something earlier than that, even if it's at the end of May. The Fringe Festival is coming up, so there's been some limited theaters. So if you know a theater that has 100 to 120 seats max, that has a really great tech, you let me know.
Send us messages, listeners.
Send us messages.
Help us hook Kelsey up.
In Los Angeles, preferably on the east side. But if not, there'll be
we will definitely let listeners know when you've got some dates lined up so that we can get people to come to your show. So incredible. But in the meantime, if they want to go look up some clips of it, if they want to follow you on TikTok and Instagram, where can they find you?
You can find me at Kelsin Around, so KELSIN Around, on both TikTok and Instagram. I do have the Comedy Tailors version handle, but I've been putting most of the stuff for the show on that. So stay tuned for sure. There's going to be something in July. I was hoping to do something sooner, but you know what? The universe works in really mysterious ways, and maybe I will have a venue. Who knows that?
See. Fingers crossed.
Let's get the Swifties together. We need to jam. You know what I mean?
Let's do it. Absolutely.
Caitlin, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you so much for coming on the show with me and being my very first live guest. I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for helping me kick off the show and everything. Your story is such a perfect example of how Taylor Swift's impact on the world has just astronomically grown over the last year. It's incredible to see how she can just inspire inspiration and devotion, even in people who have only been a part of her fandom for less than a year.
I mean,
it's crazy. You're like barely getting your 6-month chip here, so but it's just incredible to see how invested you are and the incredible impact that being a part of this community has had on you. And I'm just really grateful that you decided to come and share your story with us on the show today. So
thank you again, and thank you, Taylor Swift, for not giving up at any point and being a total source of inspiration. Well deserved. Let's make that extra threshold album of the year. You got this. We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen. Now let's not just set the record.
Yeah.
Let's just keep going, girl. We got you.
Let's keep doing it.
All right, Caitlin. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And we will be continuing to do this podcast, The Manuscript, the story of us as told by Taylor Swift, every 2 weeks. Hopefully, we will have new episodes for you guys. Next time, we are going to dive into the opposite end of the spectrum, and we're going to be talking to author and lifelong Swiftie J.P. Roth. She will be joining us to share the story of how Taylor Swift has lifted her up in life since she first saw her perform when she was 17 years old. So make sure everybody to subscribe to us here on Spotify or on YouTube, wherever you're listening, in order to keep getting those new episodes and hear her story and more chapters of the manuscript that Taylor has written for us in our lives. If you would like to follow the podcast on TikTok and Instagram, we are TS Manuscript Pod. That's the letter T, the letter S, like Taylor Swift, Manuscript Pod on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you would like to be a guest on our podcast and share your personal Swiftie journey with us, you can go online and apply to be a guest on the Manuscript podcast on our link tree. That is linktree.com/TS Manuscript Pod. So go there now, click on the link, and put in an application to be a guest on our show. New episodes available every 2 weeks. Again, thank you so much to Kelsey Djupstrom for being my co-host for the day. I had such an amazing time talking to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So much fun.